Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy,
where we're expanding the conversation around Catholic sexuality.
We're your hosts, Ellen and Kathleen. Before we get started with this week's episode, I want to tell you about an incredible opportunity you have for your marriage and particularly your sexual intimacy and your sex life. My Delight is a 90-day program to help you gain more intimacy, joy, and pleasure in sex. This program was designed by Dr. Sarah Bartell, who has been on the podcast before during our highly popular licit and illicit acts episodes. Please go check those out if you haven't. I supported Sarah through her creation of this program, and I went through her first cohort last fall, and it was an incredible experience and an incredible program. It has video lessons as well as live group coaching throughout the entire program. She only opens this program a few times a year, and this week, February 13th through the 16th, it is open. So please go and check out this incredible program. You can click the link in the show notes to learn more or sign up. All right, here we are back with another Charting Toward Intimacy episode.
We're back.
Today, we are talking about your marriage in the world and the battle that your marriage is facing. The battle between good and evil that is happening in your marriage.
Whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
What we want to start with, though, the title of this episode, if you saw the title of this episode, it says A Letter from Valentine. And this is coming out the day before Valentine's Day. And St. Valentine, we don't know a lot about St. Valentine, but there are numerous stories about him writing letters, maybe to the jailer's daughter and healing her blindness, or to married couples, or there's lots of stories about St. Valentine writing letters. This is where we get the "from your Valentine," because that's how he, quote, signed the letters. So anyway, I asked Chat GPT, which is the AI chatbot that is like blowing up on the internet, or did blow up a couple of months ago, but it's still around. People still use it. I asked it, you can just prompt this chatbot to like write you something. So you can say, hey, write me a poem about, ice cream and eggs. And it will write you a poem about ice cream and eggs. I'm not kidding. I would love to see, if anybody wants to see what chatbot will do, like send me that poem.
That is so funny.
But I asked the chatbot to write me a letter to married couples from Valentine. So here's the letter. Dear married couples, greetings to you on this special day in honor of love and commitment. I am St. Valentine, and I am writing to encourage you in your journey as a married couple. I know that being married in today's world can be filled with many challenges, but I want to remind you to always trust in God and His plan for your marriage. He has brought you together for a purpose, and He will be with you every step of the way. Lean on your faith in God to provide you with the strength and wisdom you need to navigate the ups and downs of marriage. Seek His guidance in every decision you make and turn to Him in prayer when you face difficulties. Remember that God is the source of all love and that He is the foundation upon which your marriage should be built. Trust in His love and grace to sustain you, and you will find peace and joy in your relationship. I pray that God will bless your marriage and fill it with love, joy, and peace. May your love for each other continue to grow and flourish, and may you always find comfort and support in your faith in Him. With love, your Valentine.
So let's just be reminded that a robot wrote that.
I know, right?
Which is just terrifying. Really cool and really terrifying all at the same time. I don't know.
But don't worry, this episode is not about AI.
It's just so theologically on point. I don't know. How does a robot know good theology? I
know.
It's very strange.
I think this letter is spot on. We'll copy this letter into the show notes if you want to read it again. But I just also want to point out that every he and him that is talking about the Lord is capitalized. Like, it even has the correct grammar.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers. I honestly don't know how to feel about it. It's like awesome, but scary. Yeah.
Yeah. But truly, I do want to point out that, like, it talks about, turning to God. Like, lean on your faith in God to provide you with the strength and wisdom you need to navigate the ups and downs of marriage. Seek his guidance in every decision you make and turn to him in prayer when you face difficulties. Like, that paragraph is so spot on. You should memorize that paragraph and tell it to yourself every single day, because your marriage is a battleground. It is the battleground between good and evil. And we're going to talk a little bit about theology of the body. We're going to talk a little bit about Tobias and Sarah, but why don't you start with Sister Lucia?
Yeah. So, when we were thinking about what to do for a Valentine's Day episode, we were originally talking like, oh, we could do like tips for how to celebrate Valentine's Day. And first of all, I was like, I am not a good authority on that. So number one.
And it felt kind of cheap. Like, we were just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Everybody else is doing tips on celebrating Valentine's Day. It's
a little bit cheap.
Find some tips elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of other places you can find tips. I just felt it so deep in my soul. Like Ellen's been saying, the battleground that is marriage right now. And that we just I just wanted to like talk about it. I just wanted to put it out there that anyone who listens to this can really just be like, feel like you are heard and understood, and to be reminded of the reality of marriage being under attack right now. I've seen it in so many personal marriages in my life, especially in the last few years. It just feels like it's one good Catholic marriage after another has either been totally put through the ringer or completely torn down. And I mean, like, destroyed in the last few years. And it's like, how is this happening? So it brings me back. I keep reflecting on Our Lady of Fatima, when she, appeared to Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco. She spoke about this to them, and Sister Lucia wrote to a priest semi-recently. The time, or I guess not recently, but I forget exactly.
I know,
when.
Sister Lucia's been gone for a little while.
Yeah, and so not recently, but but within our lifetime, she wrote a letter to a priest. The time will come when the decisive battle between the kingdom of Christ and the kingdom of Satan will be over marriage and the family.
And why? Let's talk about why it's going to be over marriage and family. Because, and we've talked about this on the podcast before if you've listened to episodes. So this is like my anthem. I say this a lot, but your marriage is an image of Christ's love to his bride, the church. Your marriage is an image of the relationship that God wants to have with humanity.
Yeah. And keep going.
I was just going to say, I mean, like, why wouldn't Satan want to absolutely destroy that?
Yeah. And also marriage is it's good, strong marriage it's the basis for society, right? So, I mean, there's like, it goes beyond the theological, it goes down to like the societal and the practical too. Mm-hmm. That if we can destroy the basis for society itself comes crumbling down, and I don't know, maybe it can get worse, but it has felt to me lately like we are in that final battle. Like we are in the throes of that battle. So I think that we really want to take this episode to sort of speak to all of you married couples and sort of remind you what your marriage is, but also like how hard marriage is. And it's okay that it's hard. And to really encourage you that even though it's hard, we need to persevere.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, we are letting Satan win. And I am sure that there are a lot of you who are seeing what I've been seeing lately.
And maybe you're seeing it in your own marriage.
Maybe you're seeing it in your own marriage. And if that's the case, we want to speak to you. Like, we want to encourage you to keep pushing. And we know it's not easy. We know it's hard. We know there are layers to the problems that maybe you're experiencing or to the frustrations that you're experiencing. It's not just a simple, oh, if we fix this, we fix our marriage. There are probably many things that need to be fixed, but nothing is impossible if you give it to God.
Right. Like, we just want to say too that if you feel like something is just trying to attack your marriage and you just feel like just you and your husband, or if you're a man listening, you and your wife, like you and your spouse just can't get things right, that's because there is something trying to attack your marriage. And I think sometimes that's all we need is the recognition that this is a battleground. John Paul II in Theology of the Body, toward the end, he starts reflecting on the marriage of Tobias and Sarah. And so Sarah had she had married 7 men before Tobias came along, and every one of those 7 men had been had died on the wedding night before they could consummate the marriage. And so Tobias is like told by the angel of God, like, hey, you're going to go marry Sarah. And he's like, oh, excuse me. Sarah's that one where the guys all die.
Bad juju. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I want to go to that house. And Tobias walks up to the house and Sarah's dad is digging his grave. Like,
yeah, it's true.
That's how bad this is.
Oh
anyway,
gosh.
We'll dive in a little bit more to Tobias and Sarah, but they had, like, the devil was attacking marriage right there in a very tangible way. And I think the attack that we're talking about more often than not is a little bit more intangible. It's the rut that you get in that you just can't figure out why you're in it. It's the arguments over very silly things that aren't that big of a deal. It's you noticing every tiny little nitpicking thing that bothers you and then it like harboring on you. It's the difficulty in communicating with each other. It's the wanting to find things to blame, blaming NFP, blaming your sex life, blaming work. It's being torn away and wanting to spend time watching TV instead of having a date night, or spend extra time at work instead of coming home for dinner. It's like it's these little things, and they're a little bit more intangible than, actually being killed on the wedding night.
But then these are the things too that they're so small and they seem like, oh, we can just write it off to like, oh, this is how marriage goes. Oh, this is what happens once you have kids. Oh, this is, and for some of us, we can feel like it's not a big deal. It's a phase. We'll make our way out of it. And so we don't give any attention to it. And then what happens when we don't give the attention to it? These little things become big things.
Yep.
And big things in a way that, a spouse is all of a sudden like just maybe not all of a sudden, but like tempted towards infidelity, like because it doesn't just like, happen like that all of a sudden. Like I'm so in love and now I'm going to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's
now
like,
I'm out of love.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it's these little things that build up that we just write off because of wherever we are in life, that we feel like they don't need a lot of attention and we'll get to them eventually. That all of a sudden they've built up to a point that our spouse feels unloved and maybe go somewhere else. Right. So, and I mean, that's like worst case scenario. That is
right.
not,
And we're not trying to, we're not trying to like scare you and saying like your spouse is going to leave you. No. Please don't take that this way.
But it's, the point that all of these little things, if they're not paid attention to, can become big things in one way or another. And it's just, we want to really encourage you to focus on the little things in your marriage, because they become big things. And when we focus on the little things, like the fruits become big, so it's,
what popped into my head when you were saying, you were talking about in love and falling out of love.
Yeah.
So going back to our AI generated letter, which this is a very true theological statement. God is the source of all love. God is love.
Yeah.
I wish I had the catechism quote right now, but somewhere around the mid 200s, God is love.
God is love. Yeah.
Because God is a Trinity, and the Trinity is this outpouring of love. But yeah, so if God is love, if God is the source of all love, if you are in love, you are in God. You are walking with God. And as soon as you say something like, "Oh, I'm out of love. I've fallen out of love," you're not with God anymore.
Yeah.
You're not walking with him. And so it is important to remain in love, as in remain in God in your marriage. And
not infatuated.
Not infatuated. Right. We're not talking about like, "Oh, I'm in love, lovey-dovey," right? We're talking about being in love itself. Like allowing, asking God to just place your marriage in the middle of the Trinity.
Yeah.
And allowing his love to just like flow through the two of you, to each other and then to him, and, just like set yourself right in the middle of that triangle, right?
Yeah. Because getting to the heart of what does it mean to be in love, right? I mean, from a cultural standpoint, we think of in love as infatuation, right? Like I'm so overwhelmed with feelings, with positive emotional feelings for this person, right? And that's not what you can't have the feeling of being in love be the foundation of a marriage. Like you're saying, it needs to be placing yourself in love himself, so that love then becomes an act and a choice and not a feeling.
Right. God isn't a feeling.
Right.
God is the creator. He is an action, sort of, in a sense.
He can prompt us. He prompts us. He guides us and directs us towards action, right? He directs us towards service of another, to action. Yeah. And so we can then say, like, it doesn't matter how I'm feeling is not, it's not the guiding star for my marriage. My action is, right? Am I choosing to love my spouse today, even though they really ticked me off yesterday and I'm not having very positive feelings for them right now? Am I waking up this morning choosing to love them?
Right. And this is language that's used in a lot of like marriage preparation programs. Like love is a choice. And I just, oh gosh, I feel like it's too late when we're talking to engaged couples about love being a choice, because at that point, like when you're engaged, you're like infatuated. You're still in that infatuatedness. And a couple of years into marriage, you might still be in infatuatedness, or maybe not. Maybe the second, like in my marriage, basically the second we got married, infatuation went away. And we were immediately in a battle. And it was really, really hard. I was actually just talking to someone a couple of days about how, and he shared the same exact sentiment. I would not want to go back to the first 6 months of marriage.
I have said that to oh my gosh, it's so funny. I have said that recently to my husband. I was like, if you could go back to our wedding day and re-experience it and like start everything all over, like, would you want to do it? It was like, heck no.
Oh my gosh, where we're at is such a better place.
Oh my gosh, there is so much growth that has happened. I would never want to go through it again.
And that
it's painful.
That is because of the grace of God. It is not because of our own humanity. It is not because my marriage is better than yours, you listening, right? Like, it is because God has allowed my husband and I the grace to grow out of where we were at when we first got married into, where we're at now. And God willing, he will allow us to continue to grow in love, in him, right?
Yes,
I want to mention, this is interesting. It's popping into my head that, so back to Tobias and Sarah, this very physical battle is happening on the wedding night. It is happening when, like, right before the spouses come together. Everything, and this is a quote from Theology of the Body, everything, in fact, happens during the couple's wedding night. John Paul II is commenting on the fact that, like, this battle happens on Tobias and Sarah's wedding night. Another quote from Theology of the Body. This is Address 115. When spouses unite as husband and wife, they must find themselves in the situation in which the powers of good and evil fight against each other. So, like, the battle's not only in your marriage, but it's in the conjugal act. Yeah. And this is why, like, it's so easy to be, and like, I might be calling out something that's in your mind right now. This is why it's so easy to be tempted to use condoms during the fertile window. This is why it's so easy to be angry at natural family planning, thinking that it's the problem. This is why so many Catholics use contraception, because it is, quote, easier. This is why, like, outside of Catholicism, like, fertility awareness is rarely found, right? Like, marriages don't recognize the necessity of a free, total, faithful, and fruitful conjugal act in the marriage. But that is, like, the key. Yeah. Yeah. And I would, this brings me to one of the points that I wanted to mention, is that marriage is not ever going to be 100% easy. And if it is, it's sort of problematic, because marriage is meant to be sanctifying. Mm-hmm. It is literally your path to heaven. And we can't get to heaven. We can't do it without the sanctification, without the suffering, right? Without the death to self and the learning to sacrificially lay down your life for another. Right. Because again, our marriage is imaging Christ's love to his bride, the church. What did Christ do? He laid down his life. He laid down his body for his bride. And the bride goes the way of the bridegroom. How did Jesus get back to heaven? Through the cross. How are we going to get there? Through the cross. Exactly. We have to die and be resurrected. And in a way, it's encouraging to hear that you can hopefully, I mean, for me anyway, when we're going through something and I think of this, it encourages me to embrace the hardship. And not in a way that's like, okay, I'm going to keep things hard because that makes me holier. No, by all means, be determined to fix what's not working, but understand that fixing it is going to be hard. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not always as easy as like, oh, all I have to do is twist this and turn this and we're fixed. No, it's like a lot of the times the issues that arise in our marriages and the struggles that we have, they're a long haul fix. Mm-hmm. It's something that will not happen overnight, that cannot happen overnight. A lot of the times it's going to take years of rebuilding trust to fix these things, right? I mean, but in a way, the things we've mentioned, have been pretty trivial, but you might be sitting here going, I'm dealing with infidelity here. This is a totally different battle. But it's not. I want to assure you that it's the same battle. And it is. It's the fact that this has hit your marriage, whatever it is, whether it's kind of smaller or bigger. The fact that anything has hit your marriage is because Satan sees your marriage as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Exactly.
we can take like solace in that, of like we can be a little bit consoled of like, wow, like Satan thinks that I'm a threat. And you know what? I am a threat to him. Your marriage is a threat to him.
But don't let it go.
Right.
Don't. I think that, yeah, we just can't, for anybody that maybe is at that point where, maybe you've experienced infidelity or something equally devastating. And you feel like you've grown so far apart, you don't even know your spouse anymore. I beg you, for the sake of your own sanctification, for the sake of the church, for the sake of everything, do not give up. I know it's awful. I came from a divorced family and I know how terrible those things can be. Do not let Satan win this battle. There are so many good resources out there. I know Retrovai is like a big
Retrovai is amazing. And it's not just for couples that are like on the last string.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
you don't have to be on the brink of divorce to go to a Retrovai retreat.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. So, look up those resources, and I'm sure there are many people who are just going to kind of be like, you guys have no idea what it's like. And you're right.
We don't.
Like, we don't. But
God does.
God does. And he walks with you the entire way. And if you needed a sign to just like keep pushing and to not give up, like, please let this be it. Like, we are asking you, for the sake of the kingdom of God, please don't give up and don't give this one over to Satan, because that is exactly what he wants. You are a threat and he wants to take you down. He wants your marriage destroyed. Don't let him do it.
Right.
And this brings me to my husband, like, God love him, for, we are both such flawed human beings. But over the last like several years, I have just seen how much he has grown in virtue. And the message that he's really sent to me in a lot of ways is that our marriage is literally everything. Mm-hmm. It is our vocation. It is our path to heaven. It is everything. And the way he says it is, it says, if somebody came into my house and threatened my family, I'd kill him. Like, that's it. Like, nobody's going to come in and threaten my family. And so in the same way, if something comes in and threatens our marriage, he's like, that's it. It's scorched earth. That's the term he uses all the time. It's scorched earth. I don't care what people think of me, what I have to do. I don't care about anything. Like, it is scorched earth. I will burn everything down to save our marriage.
Yes.
And it's such and it could be anything. It could be, like we said, work. It could be another person, the threat of another person, right? It could be just
comparison, comparing yourselves.
Comparison. Exactly. He's like, I don't care what's coming in. If it's threatening our marriage, it's done. It's gone. And I have so appreciated, and it's been really encouraging to me and my personal wounds, I would say, of, that I've kind of grown up with, and fears of marriage and infidelity and all this kind of stuff. It has been so encouraging for him to outspokenly have that perception, you know what I mean? That perspective that it's like, no, nothing's coming in here. And I think that's something we all can really try to look at when we see those little things that, might not be perfect, or that we kind of are tempted to brush off. Can we look at that and say, is this a long or short-term threat to my marriage? And if it is, friends, scorch earth. That is it. Like, nothing else matters. You tackle it, because that's where the battle is.
A really great place to end is coming back to our AI generated letter. I just love how this letter ends. And I think that this is a great place to end this podcast episode. And I think St. Valentine actually is saying this to us, even though it was generated by AI, but God works through everywhere.
Saint Valentine generated it through the AI.
Yeah, I agree. So Saint Valentine is telling you, I pray that God will bless your marriage and fill it with love, joy, and peace. May your love for each other continue to grow and flourish, and may you always find comfort and support in your faith in Him, the Lord, capital H Him.
Yeah.
And that's where we want to end today. Not tonight. Maybe you're listening to it tonight. Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.